Okay, so let's look for some shallogram features that maybe are like tooth-like and then kind of evolve into like a wave-like. Maybe here's a good wave-like one. Kind of tooth-like, but also resembles wave-like to a point where maybe it does like evolve into a more wave-like nature from a tooth-like nature. So like that looks pretty wave-like. Wave-like. Just straight up wave-like here. But this is much more tooth-like, like a sharp point, a sharp point, more sharp. So it has that capacity to be either like a sharper with a wider tooth-like aspect or a wave-like feature. Okay, good. So as we were talking about here, almost certainly then this is like a tooth-like aspect of a shallogram feature happening here. That maybe like also was here, but it just got the current here was just not conducive of the shallogram feature being as visible, because it's maybe it was even like actually happening here, like on the surface of the earth. When it was here, like that, maybe that was right here forming, and then this current began to just basically, or this current coming in from this side, the one coming in from Europe, started to just generally push the formations that were past the boundary here, past where this current is. Anything forming in this current at that boundary of this current were being pushed by the other current generally out of the region this way, to leave like the connection through and then through. So there's a relationship between these two currents interacting here and sort of in some way bending back here, producing this shallogram feature, and also bending back and like really bending back to the point where it starts to like kind of combine, not just be canceled out like here where they're kind of exactly perpendicular, but more flow with it, but not totally as part of it. So it begins to go like out there and then down with it more as, but then for some reason just producing this across the process, I guess. Like at any point, it's at some point of this, but it's across the process. Maybe initially, it's like even over here, like adjacent to Asia-ish, like here, probably even. And then as the Earth expanded, so maybe it expanded, producing like this was down here maybe at the time. I'm not sure, but I think that's a good assessment though, is that this thing and the continuation thereof, the energetic propagation across here, is generally related to the this current crossing and essentially forming a big eddy backward that then fuels like a cross current in this direction that then interacts again with the current and just vibrationally outward produces these like initial teeth, and then more and more vibrationally these things out here, to a point where then it almost looks like a double helix type feature emerges in this region across the opening as it really fills in, like fills in the space as the earth suddenly ruptures here. So I guess there's a current. Maybe this is participating in the boundary of Papua New Guinea, like along this side. Like it's coming out through there in some way. Maybe even like actually here. If there's somehow like this shallogram feature there, still teeth somehow going through there, but in a wave-like feature. Like to the point where maybe it's even this big. Up here, across here, up here, and back to here, where it then has like a tooth type thing there even. I don't want to end this recording, so I'm just going to sit here muted. Feel free to just skip ahead until I start to move the screen. Okay. So this current, though, appears to, maybe in some way, like before this opens, have been propagating across here, maybe, or across here, across this side, and then another one was coming in through here that was actually further, a little further over, like this opening. The one coming in more straight, more wide current here, but then the narrow one coming up through here, and then they kind of interact up through here and maybe vibrate down here. I'm thinking creating a tooth again up here, but I noticed, so like maybe up here a little bit, another tooth like that, and then another tooth, and another tooth here, and then maybe another tooth, maybe another tooth. Energetically it starts to interact like that in a way where it starts to create like these even. Because this is probably this is after the Earth expanded, when the energy was propagating more in this direction. Or is it? I guess it was just, it was going like this, and then probably just opening this region with eddies forming here that were just bubbling this region while the current flowed around the eddies and just went down this way along the resistance of this other current. So it generally went along this current down this way, flowing here, to the point where it ran into the current coming out of the mantle puncture hole that the storm especially was redirecting down here. Maybe the storm was participating in that. There was a current that was going this way, but there's also probably just in general the current from across Africa that's also into Madagascar and into this region, cutting across here and into underneath here, also cutting across. And so, like, the boundary where the current from that direction is overwhelmed by the current from this direction is around here, which then forms the upper portion of this arc in like a more straight way. It's just kind of, it's not quite as eddied here as down here is like a straight up eddy. Because there's a current from this way that is again colliding with resistance from, I guess, Africa or whatever is exactly the current. This current, generally speaking, cutting across here, however it gets exactly to meet the resistance here. So maybe that current from Africa actually down here begins to be what's actually mostly flowing in through with like this side, because I think there's a current flowing in maybe here, right here, that flows in just across there maybe. In some way it's flowing into Australia. I mean, this is generally being shaped over time, so it's like just crossing into Australia mostly. Just across Australia where it's then colliding with the other current. And there's another current coming in from Antarctica down through Antarctica that then enters into Australia from the other tip. Which maybe we can look at it more, think of it more as over here, like right here. This current flowing into that tip, which also flows in. Is that true? I don't think that was correct. This is essentially bonded to here, and then Antarctica is here. So there's a current coming down this way that probably, instead of going across with this flame, more flows down here, straight down this way, producing this boundary with this other current that's flowing out along the edge here. Although I'm not sure if that makes total sense. I'm not sure. Maybe it's more flowing across this way from Africa, the East African Rift region, like anything flowing down this way that then started to go across here, met resistance from the from the expansion of the Earth. Currents. This one. This current ran into the other current that was coming from the East African Rift. I guess this way. Maybe just right this way. Generally, initially, maybe it was just going right there. Like went east-west and north-south. And when it went east, it stayed underneath the surface, really. And then when it went west, it started to open the Mediterranean ultimately at some point. And then when it went north, it didn't really produce a detectable opening in like the Asia from the north projection of energy. But whereas from the southward projection, maybe, because it essentially participated in this, maybe. So maybe that's why it doesn't really get that far here. Probably is because this current, generally speaking, from Dwarka, from this mantle puncture hole, going out in the 4 cardinal planes, generally speaking, went in 4 directions, and one of which was this way, and then I guess this way. So maybe, or generally here, over to here, but maybe through this way, like that, and produced like a boundary with that current that was coming across from North America that was able to branch over here, but then it met the resistance there, producing that wall. And so then the current went through this way to then go along, I guess, along this. It went on along Africa, Madagascar boundary, maybe region, to go into Asia or South America, into the southern half of South America to then produce that boundary ultimately. But it also went on the other side of Madagascar and kind of branched around it. Maybe in two directions then. Maybe the one going along the western, or along India, was the one that went from the mantle puncture hole, because that makes more sense that it then went into this region with a current into Australia. Like, for sure there's a current. For sure there's a current from like here into Australia here. So generally speaking, it maybe goes across this way, like that, because of the storming part. Maybe the storm even projects certain angles of it. Because the storm's like here, it really, up here region. So it could kind of produce some current that back through there. Certainly this one kind of, and so there's a current then for sure that went southward, let's say, to the South Pole, which was here, I guess, region. Maybe. And then it essentially met the other currents, which made Australia Australia. Like, the fact that there's a current coming in that way, and there's a current coming in this way, and there's a current another way, this way, and just, I guess, two, like a large current coming in generally from the other side. Where is the other side? Is it like here? Oh, this map is hard to read. I guess I'm missing half of it. Here we go. Australia. There we go. Okay. This is 400 MA, so this is pretty early on. Essentially, this maybe the current is going here initially, up in this region of North America, but as the Earth expands, it just like moves the boundary where it's initially going this way, but then it begins to go further and further southward, like still along some equator of the process, maybe. And then there's just a lot of turbulence here because of all the currents crossing that are just like almost stay focused in this region here, but it just moves slowly down the coast as it novas over and over, which maybe is related to, because here's the nova center that just sits here. It just sits here. Like, all the currents just continuously flow into it, but it's physically moving as this space around it expands to leave like this region. I believe, as like where the novas just kept happening, but then they just were pushing the space over, so then like it ended up producing a nucleus here to Australia, and then just generally this like nova center here, where like here's this current coming in here, here's this current coming in here, from here, coming in this way, hitting Australia region and just branching over here, so it goes in through this way. Here's a current going in through it, and then also the Mariana Trench cutting across, like that current also interacts with that region, so that this location has three currents that are pinching in on it pretty much and just holding this to form this figure eight that then novas over and over, producing more openings and just producing also this ammonite feature here and then this feature here separately. Crazy. Crazy. Okay. I'm just gonna have to keep watching these most recent ones and then like having thoughts and recording the thoughts. I really believe I'm almost at the same location when people like fully watch this string of videos. They'll probably be like in some ways more informed than me because I don't remember most of these things. I almost need to go back and rewatch and rewatch and rewatch until I can remember enough details to like. But it's just so many hours at this point. Like it's at least 100 hours of this, of just this underground science video series that I don't see an end in sight yet. Really, practically, it seems like it's just. Although maybe once I really map the currents enough that I feel like okay, like wow, I really feel like I've mapped the currents at this point. Like in the degree where like there's flows back and they're creating eddies and they're creating shallogram features, like things of that nature even. Like if I start to map it like that and like really completely like account for pretty much everything here and like I've accounted for a lot of this. Like I've accounted for this region, the Himalayas, this region. Like there's so, especially this region. A lot of places I've like for instance here, just by calling it a flame, it accounts for like the whole region practically, in some degree, to a sufficient degree where it's kind of accounted for. Sure, there's more nuances, but like it really does capture a lot of the essence. Whereas over here, like that doesn't do it. But like having the colliding currents starts to shed some light. So maybe over time, it's possible to really describe the totality of what happened and bring some more sequence to it all. Certainly, there's a lot of things that I'm like, maybe that was wrong still, that that need like ironed out. But certainly progress. Certainly progress. To just have this was huge. So many things came from realizing this current flowed that direction and adjacent to another current. See you soon.